Just a quick announcement before we launch into the news. We're going to be running silent on Monday and Tuesday due to the federal holiday and then to the fact that I'll be in Boston for the big NCIA conference. We'll be back with our regular publishing schedule on Wednesday the 19th. This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at Atlantic Farms, a Maine-based cannabis company with operations in both Maine and Massachusetts. I actually covered these guys in a story last year as they opened up their unique gas station/medical marijuana dispensary right up the road from me here in Portland, Maine. The folks over at Atlantic Farms are currently looking for investors to help them grow their company to the next stage. Swing over to theatlanticfarms.com to learn more. That's theatlanticfarms.com. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Friday, February 14th, 2020, and you're tuned in to episode 887 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. The city of Los Angeles, California leads off today's news with a great headline concerning 66,000 marijuana-related convictions dating all the way back to 1961 that are being expunged by LA County District Attorney Jackie Lacey, who announced the news yesterday after a judge signed an order to do so on Tuesday. One of the provisions of 2016's marijuana legalization, Prop 64, is one allowing people with cannabis charges on their records the rights to get those marks expunged. But that process requires action from each individual and is costly and time-consuming, so any real effort to right the wrongs of the war on marijuana need to come with some kind of automation built in. Pop over to David Down's story on this over at Leafly for details and to learn more about the program Code for America, which we've talked about here on the show, and that is working to bring computer automation to the table when it comes time to wipe clean entire ranks of marijuana offenders. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. Canadian marijuana company Aurora Cannabis just announced its latest quarterly fiscal results just a week or so after founding CEO Terry Booth announced his retirement on top of 500 job cuts and $1 billion in write-downs. As you might have wagered, the fiscal results aren't that stellar, with Aurora realizing a net loss of $1.3 billion Canadian on the quarter, mostly fueled by those $1 billion in write-offs. Aurora had $56.6 million Canadian in revenue, which was around 25% off the previous quarter's haul of $75.6 million Canadian. At the same time, the company's costs rose, with overhead expenses jumping 23% to just under $20 million Canadian. You can read all the gory details yourself over at Marijuana Business Daily. Our final top story on the day and the week swings us out to California, where John Schroyer over at Marijuana Business Daily covers the story of the California Cannabis Industry Association, which is in a bit of political hot water at the moment after representatives from California's 3 major labor unions asked the state's leading Democratic lawmakers to shut out the industry association from any future negotiations over legal marijuana. The 3 unions, the United Food and Commercial Workers Western States Council, 2 Teamsters Locals, and the California Labor Federation, are unhappy with the California Cannabis Industry Association over a recent white paper the association sent out that offered a warning to business owners that if their workers were to unionize, they'd have, quote, decreased flexibility and increased costs, unquote. That did not endear the association to the unions, which fired off their letter this week. As John has it in his story, which you should read in full yourself, it's not clear yet what the fallout will be for the California Cannabis Industry Association, but it's not likely to be nothing. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Atlantic Farms, a Maine-based cannabis company with operations in both Maine and Massachusetts. The folks over at Atlantic Farms are smart and savvy and are looking for people who want to help them take their company to the next level as investors. If you've been looking for a good operation to lend your investment and expertise to, then you really need to look at Atlantic Farms of Maine, which you can learn more about over at theatlanticfarms.com. They currently have vertically integrated medical marijuana operations here in Maine, as well as applications in for our new, soon-to-launch adult use program, in addition to cultivation and processing facilities down in Massachusetts. You can get the conversation started with the folks over at Atlantic Farms by emailing info@theatlanticfarms.com. That's theatlanticfarms.com. Big thanks to everyone over at Atlantic Farms for helping us keep the news lights running. All right. Time for the Blitz. Dan Adams at the Boston Globe helpfully rounds out a story about 7 pieces of proposed marijuana-related legislation and how they have and are faring in the Massachusetts state legislature. Highlighted are bills that would have cracked down hard on marijuana consumers who drive cars, thankfully scuttled this legislative session, as well as others that would have allowed for marijuana cafes and that would modify the state's system for handling so-called host community agreements. Not a bad one to read if you do business in the Bay State. A team of scientists in Canada say the plastic coating that lines aluminum drink cans can trap marijuana-infused drops in cannabis beverages, reducing the resulting potency for consumers. Extracted cannabis oil is not water-soluble, so it needs to be hacked a bit with some chemistry to make it work as a drinkable product. But that chemical change makes it stick to substances like aluminum can linings. This is a good overall issue to be aware of. John Schroyer's back with another story over at Marijuana Business Daily, looking at the complications that tax policy is introducing into the California marijuana industry. There's a lot of confusion for any marijuana business when it comes time for taxes, given the weird disparities between federal and state law on marijuana, but things in the Golden State seem particularly complex. John talked to some tax experts about the potential impacts that the high tax burden for marijuana businesses could have, which you should open up to read in full yourself. The nation of Scotland will soon see its first medical marijuana clinic, as a medical cannabis centre is planned for the city of Aberdeen. The UK has had limited legal medical marijuana on its books since 2018, but as of yet, no clinics have opened up outside of London. Currently, qualified patients in the UK can use only 2 marijuana-derived medicines, Epidiolex and Sativex, both made by UK-based drug maker GW Pharmaceutical. This next headline also concerns a pharmaceutical company, but one focused on the potential medicine of psychedelics. According to Randy Robinson over at Mary Jane, the Canadian biotech firm Mind Medicine Inc. has aspirations of landing as a publicly traded stock, even as it pursues clinical trials on 2 experimental drug treatments for opioid addiction that were derived from the drug ibogaine, as well as another trial looking at the benefits of LSD microdosing. This is a hugely interesting branch of drug policy reform, so not a bad one to jump into in full yourself. California artist Sheila McCafferty's newest project, called Carts for the Arts, brings notice to one of our industry's more vexing problems, and that's the mountain of plastic waste that we're generating with each marijuana sale, from exit bags to dab containers to the ever-present vape cartridge, which McCafferty uses throughout her work. This is obviously a story that you probably want to read in full, it being about the visual arts, but it's also a very serious issue that we need to figure out. The greatest legacy of legalizing marijuana should not be a sea of plastic waste. And finally for today, kudos to Las Vegas dispensary The Source for attempting to give a joint away to every customer who votes in the Nevada primary election, scheduled for February 22nd. But as Leafly has it, state law doesn't actually allow for dispensaries to give out free product, so they converted their promotion after launching it to offer up a free pre-roll to every customer spending $20 or more who rocks an I voted sticker. Check it out, Leafly, for more details here if you want to take advantage. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again Wednesday morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Atlantic Farms, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.